pedaled hard on my bike, passing my turn and having to spin back around. I ducked under a tree limb, turning onto Cherry Street. I had never rode out this far before, and sweat dripped down my neck. Behind me, I could hear my best friend's heavy breathing, but he didn't bother to complain. Our destination was probably close to 5 miles from my house, and half of it had been uphill. Almost every day during the school year, I would pass this place on the way to class. I often stared as we drove by, oddly curious about what secrets it may hold. I skid to a sudden stop, wheels sliding and dirt flying up in the air. Beside me, my friend screeched his tires, almost ramming into me. "Hey, warn me before you stop like that. What's gotten into you? It's just a house, man." I looked back up at him, shrugging my shoulders. It didn't feel like just a house. It sat in front of us, the midday sun not bothered to penetrate its shadows. The windows were boarded up and broken. The front door hung from its hinges, and weeds had begun to grow through all the cracks. I don't know how long it had been abandoned like this. When I asked my parents about it, they couldn't even remember a time when it had still been livable. I jumped off my bike, nudging my kickstand open with the toe of my boot. "You coming or what?" I called to my friend, who rolled his eyes before jumping off to follow me. The closer I got to his house, the stranger I started to feel. It was almost like it was vibrating through me. I could feel it on my skin and in my chest. It was like when you were at a stoplight and the car next to you had its bass turned all the way up, yet there wasn't any sound coming from it. I looked around for a rock and chunked it at the door. I had this strange feeling it may be electrified, yet when the rock hit the wood and bounced off the dusty old porch, I knew it wasn't. I stuck a foot out, placing it on the first step, and stumbled backwards. I was overcome by a wave of nausea that vanished the moment I stopped touching the porch. Jake reached out to catch me giving a concerned look. "I don't know, man. Maybe we should go home and play some games or something. This place looks like it's condemned. We shouldn't be here." I shook my head, already heading back up again. I couldn't tell you why I had to get in there. I just knew that I had to. Slowly, I climbed the 3 steps, stopping on the porch and waiting for the nausea. When none came, I strode over to the door, flinging it open. It creaked and groaned before falling to the ground with a loud bang. As it did so, I could hear birds crying from the inside, startled by the sound. Jake drug himself onto the porch and followed me inside. We both squinted eyes, trying to adjust to the sudden darkness. Dirt and dust clogged our noses, and I started coughing like crazy. Again, Jake tried to convince me of how stupid the plan was, but I just flapped my arms like a chicken, teasing him. When the air finally cleared and I could see again, there really wasn't much to even look at. I could smell something, and I, for a moment, considered it might actually be mold. Moving into the living room, I could see black streaks going up and down the walls. I reached out, running my fingers down the marks. "There must have been a fire here," Jake said, walking up beside me. My fingers were still on the wall, and I leaned forward, placing my entire hand against it. As I did so, my vision blurred, and I could hear voices all around me. Fighting the urge to fall over, I shut my eyes, leaning into the wall. When I began to feel more stable, I opened them, mouth flying open in shock. The house looked completely different now. Moments before, the room had been nothing but broken glass, water puddles, and chunks of rotted wood that may have been a table. Now, it was like it was back in its glory days. Nice, expensive furniture lined the room, surrounding a large TV with large speakers. The dust and grime was gone, and fluffy green carpet had planted itself under my feet. It looked so out of date from the things you would find in a house today. The TV was not a flat screen, and it stuck out in the back, taking up most of the room. I looked around me, searching for my friend, and calling out his name. I ran to the next room, and the next. Each one seemed to be like the living room. All the remnants of the fire and its abandonment were gone. Even the bed sheets in the rooms looked like they'd been freshly washed and made. Finally, I found my friend in the last bedroom I looked in. He was sitting on the end of the bed with a comic book in his hand. He casually flipped the pages, apparently unaware of what was going on around him. "Dude, did you see what just happened? How is this even possible?" I asked him, slight panic in my voice. Something felt very wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. He ignored me, continuing to look through the comic like I hadn't even said anything. I sprinted across the room to grab him by the shoulder and get him out of there. Yet when I did so, my hand just passed right through him, not finding anything to grab onto. "What the?" I said aloud to myself. I yelled, then trying everything I could think of to get his attention. He took no notice of me, and my throat started to hurt. I picked something up from the dresser next to us and threw it at him. It went straight through his chest, like a hologram, before reappearing again, right where I had gotten it from. I wanted to panic, to run out of there, and not look back, but I couldn't leave without him. That's when I started to smell it. At first it was subtle, and I couldn't quite make out what it was. As the smell grew stronger, I realized why it seemed so familiar. I could remember going camping as a kid, and coming home to wash my clothes after sitting by the campfire all weekend. The smell was like those clothes, and I knew instantly that it was fire. I ran out into the hallway, leaving my friend unaware in the other room. Frantically searching, I went into the kitchen, where I found it. Flames were popping up from behind the oven and already spreading across the walls and cabinets. It ate at the wood, burning through it faster than I thought could be possible. Running over to the sink, I lifted the handle, hoping to put it out before it could spread farther. No water spouted from the tap, and I tried again and again. The fire was almost through the entire kitchen again, and I turned to see that I was surrounded. As little flames sprung up to catch the carpet in the next room, I screamed for Jake again, hoping this time he would hear me. A yell from the other side of the house told me that he at least knew about the fire now. Realizing there was no other way out, I took a deep breath and ran, hurling myself up and over the flames. I fell short of my target, though landing smack in the middle of them, fully ready for the pain to start. No pain came, and I stared down at my feet, watching as the fire danced around me, but never burned my skin or clothes. I walked forward, waiting for the shock to pass and the dying to start, but still nothing happened. I looked up to see that it had spread through most of the house, and that Jake was now in front of me, pinned in the hallway. I called out to him, "It doesn't hurt. Run. Just run. Let's get out of here." With that, I fled towards the door and tried to pull it open. It wouldn't budge. No matter how hard I pulled it, it wouldn't come open. Behind me, Jake ran this way, and then trying to find a means of escape, only to see that all the paths to the windows and doors were blocked. It was then that I could see the fire was actually hurting and burning his hands when he would reach for a door handle. It caught on his pants and he smacked it out, crying. Soon he started coughing and choking on all the smoke. Running back through the house, I went to him. I wasn't sure how to get him out of there without hurting him more, but I knew he would die if he stayed. Reaching out to grab his hand, my heart fell when my fingers went right through him, like I was some kind of ghost. Maybe I was, and I just didn't know it yet. I couldn't find it in me to leave, and I couldn't find a way to get him out. So I sat there horrified as I watched him cough harder and harder until he hit the floor, no longer able to breathe. The flames licked at his feet, and I fell to my knees crying, still unable to place my hands on him. I leaned forward, burying my face in his hands and beating myself up for not listening to him when he said it wasn't safe to come in here. My tears blurred my vision, and with my face covered, I didn't see the fire disappear and the house start to return to its desolate state. My head began to swim, and I felt like I was spinning way too fast. I threw my hands out, bracing myself. As I did so, I flew backwards, back slamming against the wall and my hand flying up to catch myself. Looking up, I could see I was right back where I had started. I was standing in the abandoned living room, hand flat against the black streaks on the wall. I looked around me in confusion, searching for my friend. He stood in front of me, a sad look on his face. "That was the weirdest hallucination ever. You were right. Let's get out of here." As I turned to go, I could barely make out Jake's whisper. "It wasn't a hallucination. It was a memory. It was my death." I stared at him, then wondered if he had seen the same thing I had. Jake had come over to me, reaching his hand out to place it on my shoulder, only for it to go straight through me. I looked at him puzzled and afraid, trying to make sense of it all. I had met Jake at the beginning of the year, and we'd been instant friends. There was no way he had died over a decade ago, and I had no clue. I think I would know my best friend was a ghost. Wouldn't I?